As we all know, a week ago was the release of Crossroads of Ravens, the English version of the new Witcher book, Rozdroże Kruków, which in Polish released a year ago. But did the English-speaking publisher succeed in bringing the book to life? Well, my name is Vera, and today I received my first ever PR package from Orbit Books. Thank you so much for sending me this edition of the book, and I am so excited to unbox it. All right, so first of all, I'm loving the packaging. At the back, we have like a little image of Geralt with Roach and the two Witcher blades going down the path, which I think is really great. Then it says, every legend has a beginning. It is like a term that they've been using in the marketing. And I guess it is kind of metatextual if you know what happens at the ending of The Lady of the Lake, and especially how we know that I guess Geralt is referred to in like the future of the Witcher universe. So I guess that's kind of funny. But on the other hand, I do worry sometimes, and this is just like in general with general Witcher marketing, I worry that sometimes people like oversell it as like this like huge like high fantasy series, and it's really much more focused on like the small and like the insular elements. But yeah, I love also the art of all the crows, and I love this selection of this maroon color. I think it calls back to their original The Last Wish color, and I really like that sort of like parallelism because that cover also displayed Geralt. But yeah, and then we have young Geralt over here, and then a quote from James Islington, the author of The Will of the Many, which says, Geralt is one of the greatest characters in all of fantasy. Well, yes, of course, let's call spade a spade. So let's open this up. Okay, and here it says, Witchers are not born, they are made. That is true. Then what else do we have in here? So the first thing that I have in here is a tote bag. Oh my god, I love this. Okay, I really love it. It just says Andrzej Sapkowski, The Witcher, Crossroads of Ravens, and it has like a line art of like a frame with twigs and crows. I think it's very cute, and I think it really fits the energy. So, and I also love that it's black, like crows are black. Maybe I'm giving them too much like maybe I'm reading too much into something as simple as a color choice, but I appreciate the details. I really appreciate the details. And then we also have these stickers, and these are, I believe, from the different, I know like this one, and oh my god, Yennefer. Guys, she is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, I swear. So I think all of these are either from covers or from internal artwork. Like this artwork, I'm pretty sure is from The Sword of Destiny, specifically from the Eternal Flame short story, I think. Oh, and wait, this is actually really funny because there's a brunette dandelion, and then if you see up here, there's also a blonde one, and I think this is actually really funny because a lot of people just kind of assumed that Dandelion was brunette, and then I think in Season of Storms it randomly says that he's actually been blonde the entire time, and like part of the reason why he calls himself Jaskier, like, okay, so in Polish it's Jaskier, which in English is buttercup, and obviously buttercup is a yellow flower, and so I think Sapkowski said at some point, like, well, obviously his name is Jaskier, he's named after a yellow flower. Why would he not be blonde? And so everyone ever since then has been like, what? But yeah, so I find it really cute that they have both. Also agreed, hashtag read The Witcher. That's so real. Spreading the propaganda of read The Witcher. Then there's also a crow feather shaped bookmark that says every legend has a beginning, and then it has young Geralt of Rivia at the back, very cute. And then of course, the diva herself. My first impression is that it's a very high quality hardcover. The what's it called? The dust jacket feels very good. And this is the front, this is the side, and this is the back. At the back it says, a crossroads, Geralt. Oh, I know where this is from. A crossroads, Geralt looked around, a convergence of ways. A crossroads, a symbolic place, 4 roads leading to the 4 points of the compass. A place of choice and decision. Which will you have to take, Geralt? Witcher, Geralt. I know exactly what scene this is from, and that's a great scene. So, and one that actually echoes throughout the rest of the book. I think that's such a great part of this book. Like having these little motifs come back and have them every single time you see them change slightly in your perception of a place or a person or of Geralt himself. So yeah, that's one of my favorite things about this book. But all right, so I actually love this cover. I actually have a funny story about when it released. So whenever like Witcher stuff happens, I usually text Nimue from Ini Vitre. I love their channel so much, and I just feel like we both react with the same level of excitement whenever anything happens. And so whenever I want to like theorize or anything, I always send a little text or a little voice note, and it's just like mostly squealing, but I feel like Nimue gets that. So, you know, and then I do like the squealing, and then they like actually make coherent thoughts, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. So when this released, I think it's safe to say that both of us were gagged. So we obviously knew that this was Geralt. Then on the other hand, we also obviously knew who this character was. It is a new character, so I don't want to like say who it is yet. This character does appear at the very end of chapter 1, but since it's only been a week since the book's release, I don't want to spoil who that is. But then we had a discussion trying to figure out who this character was, and safe to say, we had 2 guesses, and neither was correct. And then I think I found a post that said who this character was, and I was like, what? Because I've never, ever imagined that character to look like this. Okay, so this is not a spoiler because it was in the promotional material. But this is Neneka, and she looks like an Instagram baddie. And she's blonde. And we were actually discussing that we're not sure why both of us never imagined Neneka to be blonde. And I guess we came to the conclusion that, you know, we've both been influenced by like the Polish Witcher adaptation, and in that she's like not blonde. And yeah, but we were really shocked. And she also, in my opinion, looks kind of like a warrior nun sort of priestess situation, and that's not really how I imagined her. And also like, what is this staff? But she looks great. I just never that's never how I imagined her. So yeah, it's giving more so like a description of, you know, like the Zerrikanian warriors. Yeah, yeah. One other thing that I was a little bit nervous about, I guess, like at the start, it was just like a thought that went through my head. You know, I am quite Netflix averse, and I did notice on this mystery character over here that there is a circular sort of amulet, and I got a little bit worried because of the Netflix of it all. But then I was like, whoa, deep breaths. And then I noticed over here, and you do have the wolf head kind of standing out, and that's perfect because that is actually how the amulets are, or medallions. Why am I calling them amulets? That's how the medallions are described in the books. So they are like circular with the animal head kind of like poking out of the circle, so that they act almost like, I don't know, like candle. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like when in like the olden days, they'd like have the wax, and like they'd use like a stamp to like show their insignia. So that's kind of like what the medallions are described as. And also, mind you, forward-facing wolf, which is important because that is also how it is described in Crossroads of Ravens. So thumbs up. Overall, I think the cover looks great. Okay, let's go. Oh, that's so pretty. Actually, this is incredible. because this fell out. So this is like a print of the cover, and at the back I get to tell you who is the incredible artist that did it. So the cover art is by Jamie Jones. Congratulations, Jamie Jones, because yeah, I think you're an incredible artist. All right, so the inside flap says, Andrzej Sapkowski's Witcher series is a global phenomenon with more than 30 million copies sold and translated into more than 40 languages worldwide. Crossroads of Ravens is a new standalone novel following fantasy's most beloved monster hunter, truer words have never been said, Geralt of Rivia, on his first steps towards becoming a legend. Again, I really think that this becoming a legend, in my mind, I'm like, they are geniuses, they are playing with this concept. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I'm going to go with that interpretation. Witchers are not born, they are made. Before he was the White Wolf or the Butcher of Blaviken, Geralt of Rivia was simply a fresh graduate of Kaer Morhen. That's such a funny way of phrasing it. Stepping into a world that neither understands nor welcomes his kind. And when an act of naive heroism, we all remember what that is, right? For those who don't remember, this is explained in one of the Voice of Reason chapters in The Last Wish. It's the one where Geralt is talking to Iola and he's explaining that the first monster that he slew while he was out from Kaer Morhen was actually a man who was going to assault, I believe, like a 13-year-old while her like father ran away and stuff. And instead of like thanking him, she was just so terrified of the violence that she witnessed that she wasn't thankful or anything. And then Geralt doesn't really elaborate further, but chapter 1 picks up right like with the aftermath of that. So if you don't remember or want your memory kind of jogged a little bit more, then be sure to check out The Voice of Reason. I'll put it on the screen in my Witcher summary video. It's all linked in the timestamps. Geralt is only saved from the noose by Preston Holt, a grizzled witcher with a buried past and an agenda of his own. Yeah, okay, well, I guess that spoils it. This is Preston Holt, guys. That is not Vesemir. I saw some people wondering online. No, this isn't Vesemir, this is Preston. Under Holt's guiding hand, Geralt begins to learn what it truly means to walk the path, to protect a world that fears him, and to survive in it on his own terms. But as the line between right and wrong begins to blur, Geralt must decide to become the monster everyone expects, or something else entirely. I really like that because that is a very big idea in this book. And the way I like to describe this book is that there are like micro plots, but then there's a macro plot that at the beginning is like little threads, like little thematic threads that connect like the micro elements of the plot. But by the end, that really comes fully fledged, and especially in the finale. And I really like that they're seeding that idea within the like what this book is about section, because with the Polish version we didn't get anything. We just got like a random like poem on the back. And so I didn't really know where we were going, like what the direction of the book was, until maybe like 2/3 into it. And so I think that line really gives you a good idea and like what to expect in this book. So I think that's really good. This is the story of how legends are made. Legends are made. And what they cost. And on the back cover, we have, of course, Andrzej Sapkowski. Let's unmask the book. Whoa! Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. And yeah, so on the back, we have Andrzej Sapkowski, and this is what I just read out. Oh my gosh, okay. This is cool, this is cool. I didn't know whether I should expect something over here or not, but this is great. Okay, so what does it say? Everything I'm going to show you here is, oh, I know exactly. Oh my god, this is from the first Rakamora sequence. Okay, okay, so the quote that we have on this cover is one from Preston Holt, the new Witcher mentor figure. And it says, everything I'm going to show you here is meant to serve self-defense. I stipulate and emphasize defense and nothing else. You are a witcher, not a ruffian or rabble-rouser. Keep that in mind. That is a great quote selection for the cover. Let me tell you, I think that right now they're actually kind of killing it with the presentation. Maybe other than like the Mother and Annika, but like, you know what, fine, it's fine, it's fine. Overall, I think that they are killing it so far with presentation, because on one hand, they are guiding you in like what you should be thinking, like what this book is about, especially since it's very windy at the start. And then this just like elevates that, because once again, this is a quote that I think that greater theme that is in this book keeps coming back to. And I'm really happy that it is already putting in your head this contrast of what is a witcher, what is a ruffian or a rabble rouser, as Preston terms it. And then also the fact that it's Preston saying it, I think really starts to get your gears turning about what sort of person Preston is. So as quote selections go, this is a really good one to pick. But before we look inside the book, I just want to compare one more thing. So this is the Polish version that I read, and this is the English version. The English version is so much bigger, but low-key, is it because of the text is bigger? Yeah, okay. So the text is, oh, that's not really. The text is much bigger and you have much more space. Whereas with the Polish version, well, the text is quite big, but it's very kind of, I feel like it's much more packed. So this version is 292 pages and the English version is 384. And with that, let's look inside of the book. Okay, so I can't believe that we have a map. Guys, if you have the other Orbit US versions of these books, which I unfortunately don't, let me know if you get maps in those too, because none of the Polish versions have maps. So, whoa, this is actually really interesting. Also, on first glance, this seems like a very, like, no way. Okay, I am very curious where they are sourcing this map, because I am noticing some weird features, like in a good way, but features that I wouldn't have been expecting. And it looks like a very accurate map. Before this, I guess, we never really had an like official map, I want to say. We had like fan-made maps, and at least that I know of. But there is one map that I always use in like my Witcher summary videos, because I find it to be the most accurate to what is being described. And kind of like if you average everything out, that's like pretty much the best representation I could find of it. And this is actually very, very similar to that. I'll actually maybe try to superimpose the maps on this just to like compare. But there are a couple of things that are immediately kind of jumping out at me that I wasn't expecting here. So the first thing that is jumping out at me is a location over here called Loch Muin. And to my best recollection, Loch Muin is not like a mentioned location in the books. At least not majorly, but it is a location that very prominently features in the Witcher 2 video game. So I will have to double check this. Insert if I'm just like making stuff up right now. Hey guys, so editing Vera coming to you. So it is actually mentioned in the Time of Contempt, but not majorly. It's just talked about like in the context of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers and the sacking of Sherwood. So, but we never actually go there, and it's only mentioned in Time of Contempt briefly. Oh my god, yeah. No, I noticed another one, but also I don't think that I'm making things up, because another very important location as well, actually from The Witcher 2, is the Lavalette Castle. And if you look over here, the Lavalette Castle is right there. So I am very intrigued where they are getting this map from and like who made it. This is very intriguing to me. Hey, it's me again. So this one's interesting. The location is not mentioned from the little bit of research that I did. We do know, though, there is a reference to the Levelettes in Blood of Elves, where Maeve says, I won't say who she says it to because spoiler low-key, but after all, you have been secretly sleeping with the Baroness Lavalette for the past 4 years. Maeve smiled again. So that is the line. And so we do have a reference to the Lavalettes as a house. We know they are a Temerian house, but we don't really get a location from what I can tell. So I still think that them including the Lavalette, I don't know, house, castle, town, I think that's quite interesting. And I am looking into where they got this map from. Honestly, I think including a map can be very helpful. That's why I try to include it in my Witcher summary videos. I just think it's really good to visualize where you are, where they're going and everything. The one thing that I am not very happy to see, unfortunately, is the logo of the devil here in the corner. Oh my god, and they included a spoiler. There is a spoiler on the map for the Tower of Swallows, so I guess don't look too closely, but yeah, okay, I need to move on. Let's see what's on the back cover. Okay, so we have the map part 2. So this is the map part 2 on the cover. I do love the color scheme and all that. And I do really like that we're getting like both parts of the map of the continent, because even though we don't really go to the southern bits much, if ever, really, I do like that. I wonder, since pretty much all of this book takes place in Kedwen, and we get a lot of information about the geography of Kedwen, I wonder if it would have been maybe nice to include, like, to focus on Kedwen and have like a more detailed map of Kedwen. But no, yeah, this is a great presentation, other than, again, this, but but yeah, I'm willing to not look at that. Anyway, I'm going to do some journalism and look into where they got this map from. I'm going to try to superimpose the map that I use, the Netflix map. Because of this, I need to double check that, and I'm going to see if they actually included all the bits from Kedwen, because there were a couple of like new cities or towns that maybe it would have been nice to have on the map, but just wasn't on the map, like the map that I use, because obviously it was created before this book was out. But yeah, no, this is great. I really like having a map. But I'll leave the map that I always use linked down below. Alright guys, so I did a little bit of, let's call it, investigative journalism, and this is what I found. The original publications in Polish of The Witcher did not have any maps. Sure, editors of Sapkowski's website made this map, and it was a good start, but it had to be heavily revised multiple times because it had many inaccuracies. Then the first official map did not come about until the Czech translation by Stanislav Komarek, where he included this map. It was made with some input from Sapkowski, but we don't really know exactly how canonical it is, but it is then the basis for all the maps going forward. And there are some major inaccuracies, but they were kind of fixed in later maps, notably where are the Kestrel Mountains? They feature prominently in The Sword of Destiny, in The Hunt for the Dragon. Heard of it, but they are just not here. Then in 2007, CDPR made their own map for the video games, which they then updated for the 2011 release of The Witcher 2 with locations that were important for that game. This map was made once again with some input from Sapkowski, and once again contains inaccuracies from what is being described in the books. For example, Aedgen Vale is randomly in Kedwen from now on, I guess. But it does seem that this map is kind of the basis for a lot of the maps going forward, even more so than the Czech one. And that includes this one found in Crossroads of Ravens. The Witcher 3 world map I don't think is too relevant for us because it leans into caricature for an artistic flavor and to help center around the few areas that you can actually explore in the game. So in other words, it's very pretty, but it's not really relevant to this discussion at the moment, and all the other maps are kind of based on the Witcher 2 map. Then Netflix also had its own map, which created new issues, but did fix the location of one Novgardian province called Gamera, which is supposed to be along the coast, but in most maps following the CDPR one is found inland. This mistake is found within the map of this book, so despite the Netflix Witcher logo, this is not the map that the map is based on. Another map I want to touch on is this one created in 2022 by the Department of Political and Historical Geography of the Faculty of Geography and Regional Studies of the University of Warsaw. That was a very, very long title. And it's based on Sapkowski's books and the CDPR games. I found this one to be very similar to the 2011 map from CDPR, but there are some big differences. So, for example, everything below the Bremerwood, Sidaris, Temeria, Edirne line is really elongated, and everything above it seems to be kind of squished. The Skellige Isles are more south than that map too, but they have the same shape as in The Witcher 3, so I guess they incorporated a little bit of that here. It is important to note that the layout here is quite similar to the book map, especially with the placement of La Valette. All in all, the most accurate map that fixes the issues would probably be this fan-made map by Adam Whitehead in 2019. And I do think that it prioritizes the book canon because it ignores things like the location of La Valette, which is a location only in the games. So where is this book map from? Well, I still don't know. My best guess is it's a combination of the Warsaw University and the Witcher 2 map with a couple of tweaks here and there because it does show the video game version of the Skellige Isles, and it also has La Valette as a location, and it has the mistake of placing Gamera inland, which are all characteristics of the video game maps. However, Aidgen Vale is in the correct spot in Narok. So that's what I could find. If you guys can find any other information, please let me know because this has been driving me crazy. And yeah, I'm very, very invested. Okay, back to the video. Okay, then it goes Crossroads of Ravens. Another map? Whoa. Okay, I feel like at this point, I feel like that's a bit overkill, but maybe people want like a lot of maps. Because this map, like, it's much more difficult to see. The Netflix of it all jumps out at you much more, which I'm never a fan of. And I feel like at this point, it would be better to just have a detailed map of Kedwen. But maybe it's... Okay, and it's not on the next page. So I do feel like a detailed map of Kedwen would have been very helpful, especially since a lot of the epigraphs... I'm gagged. No spoilers, but that gags me. Did we have a part 1 in the Polish version? I don't think we had that. Let me double check this. Yeah, whoa. The Polish version, guys, open this, and then it's chapter 1. Is that just how they do chapters? To be fair, the chapter differentiations in this book are a little bit confusing because you, at some point, get like a bunch of letters. And so you never really know, is the chapter done or not? Or is this just like a letter interrupting? So maybe that's just how they're doing chapters, but I'm kind of gagged. Oh my god, that's how they do the chapters! Because that's chapter 2! I'm so gagged. Oh my god! Okay, wait, I need to see all of that. This might take a while. Okay, then for chapter 3, we get a bear. Okay, then chapter 4, we're back to this. So now I'm thinking, are we just repeating? Guys, this is a very exciting exploration of this. I can't lie. Yeah, okay, and then we're back to this. And then we're back to this. Okay, so we are rotating between those 3 chapter headers, but I think that's actually a great way of doing chapter headers for this book because, yeah, like I said, the chapter breaks are quite confusing, especially with the letters. I am going to flip through really fast and see how they did the letters. Okay, so I found it. They didn't do anything with the letters. I think that the letters could have been improved on. Basically, at some point during the book, this is, what, chapter 8. I don't remember where exactly they appear, but they open chapter 8. So it says like, dear esteemed whatever. And then they just kind of end, and then here the plot begins again. And that's fine. That's literally the same thing that happened in the Polish version. Yeah, so we're at chapter 8. It says rozdział 8, which means chapter 8. And as you can see, here's that same letter, but in Polish. And then we flip to the next side. And then you have like the letter, and then the plot begins right on the next page. I guess this is a bad example because here you have the page break, but usually there is no page break. It just like continues with like a little line break, which is exactly what they did in this version here. I do think that an improvement from the Polish typography would have been to just standardize that there should be like a page break or something like that, just to make it a little bit less confusing, or heck, even like, you know, illustrating it a little bit. I think, you know, adding like a little frame around it or whatever. I don't know. But I did find myself when I was reading the Polish typography that sometimes I had to like, whoa, like, no, this is plot, this is not plot, focus, you know? So, but yeah, it's a small thing, and they already improved like the separation of the chapters with the chapter headings, because that was like, I do think it was a little bit of an issue with the typography, especially when there are some chapters where you have a letter within the chapter and then you have text again, and so you're like, oh great, I finished the chapter. No, you didn't. It's just a letter interceding. But yeah, no, this is good. I wonder if there's like any other art within the text. Okay, so there is no other art in the text, but I did see 2 more quotes at the end. So the 2 other quotes that they decided to highlight was, this one's from Preston Holt. It says, "The days of my Witcher glory are now a hymn of the past. I will not now venture forth with swords, nor will the luminosity of my blades, so to speak, dispel the darkness, but darkness exists. Monsters still prowl at night. You can face and vanquish them." That's a really good one, because that idea of the dispelling the darkness and stuff, it is one that comes back around in quite an emotional way later on in the novel. And then the other quote that they picked was from Neneke, and it says, "We do our best to teach you, but you still do as you please." Isn't that the most Neneke thing to say? So that is what you can find in this edition of Crossroads of Ravens. There is actually one translation that I am very curious about. You know me, David French and I have a very love-hate relationship. It's very much one-sided. He doesn't know I exist. But, and overall, I think he does a great job. He gives the same story from Polish to English. David French is the translator, by the way. I just find that sometimes his word choice kind of loses the essence or like uniqueness of the Polish language sometimes. And you know what? That's always going to happen with translation. I just sometimes feel like some choices were unnecessary. Little I and little horse, I'm looking at you. But other than that, he does get the job done. He gets the story across, which I think is really good. But there was like one scene that was the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. Sapkowski is like high-key a comedian. Witcher books are actually partial comedies in my opinion. And I just wanted to check out how he translated a certain phrase. So this isn't a spoiler, it's on page like 32, but it's the scene of Preston and Geralt doing their first contract, just the 2 of them, I guess. And Preston is essentially telling Geralt like, or maybe it's 31. It's literally just page 31. Geralt uses a very like teenage angsty sort of turn of phrase in Polish, which is so out of place. And it's just so funny because it just shows that contrast between a professional Witcher and 18-year-old Geralt. And it's one of my favorite scenes. And a lot of people who read it first, this was like a standout Geralt moment. And I was just really curious how they would translate it. And the phrase in Polish was "no weź," and they translate it to "seriously?" Geralt grunted. And I think that's fine. I wish they could have gone a little bit more, because in Polish, seeing "no weź" in a Witcher book is so out of place. You're like, what am I reading? And I feel like seriously gets the job done, but I think something like "seriously, man" would have been better, just because it's a bit more informal and a bit more out of place, but it gets the job done. And then the chapter ends with Preston saying, "Don't be cross," said Holt. "I insist that in my company you express yourself with reasonable correctness, specifically by not saying 'check it out' and 'seriously.'" And I think that's great. I think "check it out" is really good for uptight. I think that's what it was originally. And I do think that for uptight, "check it out" is like a good and informal way of kind of talking about it. And for seriously, I wish it could have been like "seriously, man," or something like that. But it definitely does work. So yeah. All right, well, those were my first impressions of the physical new edition of Crossroads of Ravens made by Orbit Books. Once again, I want to extend a thank you to Orbit for sending me this book in this package. I absolutely love the tote bag. I will be wearing it a lot, trust me. And I think the book they did a great job with. I think that the quote selection especially, and giving readers a sense of idea where the story is going, especially since the story doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. It's very slice of life at the start, but giving readers that sort of idea of, okay, it is very slice of life at the start, but notice these little threads that are being woven, because they will come and come up from under the surface later. I think that's really, really good. And I think that's actually something that they did much better in marketing than Supernova did for the Polish edition, because like on the back, we got a poem. And, you know, like, fair enough, but we just had a poem. We had no clue. Like, this poem was the only thing we had going for like a while. So definitely I think that Orbit did a great job of giving us a better sense of direction where we are going. And the art by Jamie Jones is really, really beautiful. So overall, I think they did a great job. Crossroads of Ravens is out now, so be sure to check it out online or at your local bookshop, and let me know what you think of it in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye!